Hey crew, it's Bit, and I'm back on another Bible study. Today we're going to be picking back up in Deuteronomy because we left off in Deuteronomy. But before we begin, if you are unfamiliar with what I'm doing here, if you have not been tagging along, you may want to start in Genesis. I hold unconventional views, and I am holding an unconventional Bible study. It may offend you, and I would hate for that to happen, so you should definitely start in Genesis. For the rest of us, we're going to dive into Deuteronomy. Today's going to be a pretty quick one because we're not dealing with a whole lot to deal with again. We talked about most of these issues in Leviticus, and if you're curious about my views on most of these issues, you can check them out in Leviticus. I will stop and talk about anything that's not talked about before, if I can remember, but for the most part, this is just a reiteration, right? This is setting down in papyrus or parchment or whatever it was that they made their scrolls out of. It's setting down in that this is the history of the Jews. Like, that's what this is about. So it's mainly just reiterating things, and so there's not a whole lot to talk about. But I do want to go through it because there are, on several occasions, differences in the stories that need to be pointed out. And at that time the Lord said to me, Chisel out 2 stone tablets like the originals. Come up to me on the mountain and make an ark of wood, and I will write on the tablets the words that were on the first tablets, which you broke, in order to place them in the ark. So I made an ark of acacia wood, chiseled out 2 stone tablets like the originals, and went up the mountain with my 2 tablets in my hands. And the Lord wrote on the tablets what had been written previously, the 10 Commandments. I talked about why that is not necessarily what that is in Exodus. That he had spoken to you on the mountain out of the fire on the day of the assembly. The Lord gave them to me, and I went back down the mountain and placed the tablets in the ark I had made, as the Lord had commanded me. And there they have remained. The Israelites traveled from Beeroth Bene Jaakan to Mosera, where Aaron died and was buried, and Eleazar his son succeeded him as priest. From there they traveled to Gudgodah, and from Gudgodah to Jotbathah, a land with streams of water. At that time the Lord set apart the tribe of Levi to carry the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and to stand before the Lord to serve him, and pronounce blessings in his name, as they do to this day. That is why Levi has no portion or inheritance among his brothers. The Lord is his inheritance, as the Lord your God promised him. I stayed on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights, like the first time, and that time the Lord again listened to me and agreed not to destroy you. And then the Lord said to me, Get up, continue your journey ahead of the people, that they may enter and possess the land that I swore their fathers to give to them. And now, O Israel, what does the Lord your God ask of you but to fear the Lord your God by walking in all his ways, to love him, to serve the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul, and to keep the commandments and statutes of the Lord that I am giving to you this day for your own good. Behold, the Lord your God belong the heavens, even the highest heavens, and the earth and everything in it. Yet the Lord has set his affection on your fathers and loved them, and he has chosen you, their descendants after them, above all the peoples, even to this day. Circumcise your hearts, therefore, and stiffen your necks no more. For the Lord your God is the God of gods, the Lord of lords, the great, mighty, and awesome God, showing no partiality and accepting no bribe. He executes justice for the fatherless and widow, and he loves the foreigner, giving him food and clothing. So you must also love the foreigner, since you yourselves were foreigners in the land of Egypt, except the foreigners that you're about to go and take possession of their land. You are to fear the Lord your God and serve him. Hold fast to him and take your oaths in his name. He is your praise, and he is your God, who has done for you these great and awesome wonders that your eyes have seen. Your fathers went down to Egypt, 70 in all, and now the Lord your God has made you as numerous as the stars in the sky. You shall therefore love the Lord your God and always keep his charge, his statutes, his ordinances, and his commandments. Know this day that it is not your children who have known and seen the discipline of the Lord your God, his greatness, his mighty hand, and his outstretched arm. The signs and works he did in Egypt to Pharaoh the king of Egypt and all his land, what he did to the Egyptian army and horses and chariots, when he made the waters of the Red Sea engulf them as they pursued you, and how he destroyed them completely, even to this day. What he did for you in the wilderness until you reached this place, and what he did in the midst of all the Israelites, to Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab the Reubenite, when the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them, their households, their tents, and every living thing that belonged to them. For it is your own eyes that have seen every great work that the Lord has done. You shall therefore keep every commandment that I am giving you today, so that you may have the strength to go in and possess the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess, and so that you may live long in the land that the Lord swore to your fathers to give them and their descendants, a land flowing with milk and honey. For the land that you are entering to possess is not like the land of Egypt, from which you have come, where you sowed your seeds and irrigated on foot like a vegetable garden. But the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess is a land of mountains and valleys, that drinks in the rain from the heavens. It is a land for which the Lord your God cares. The eyes of the Lord your God are always on it, from the beginning to the end of the year. So, their main complaint when they left Egypt was the seasonal planting and harvesting is tough work, right? They were in possession of the entire Nile River Delta. Right? We talked about that when we were in Exodus. They were pretty much taking up the entirety of the great land, but they had to go out and sow, and they had to go out and make irrigation ditches. Now they don't have to do that. Now they can just, cast seed wherever, and it's going to grow perfectly because water is going to flow down the mountains, and everything is going to be peachy and keen. They're not going to have to work in order to make bread. It's the land of milk and honey. They will be sustained by crops they don't even plant. It is the land for which the Lord cares. And that's another thing. We talked about geography before and how I think it's not Jerusalem but Hebron that is the focus, at least here. Jerusalem comes later, and we'll talk about that later. But the main focus for Moses seems to be the land of Hebron, where the Anaki live. That seems to be his goal. So if you carefully obey the commandment... Wait, no, that's too far. It is a land for which the Lord your God cares. Okay. So if you carefully obey the commandments I am giving you today, to love the Lord your God and to serve him with all of your heart and with all of your soul, then I will provide rain for your land in season, the autumn and spring rains, that you may gather your grain, new wine and oil. And I will provide grass in the fields for your livestock, and you will eat and be satisfied. But be careful that you are not enticed to turn aside to worship and bow down to other gods, or the anger of the Lord will be kindled against you. He will shut the heavens so that there will be no rain, nor will the land yield its produce, and you will soon perish from the good land that the Lord is giving you. Fix these words of mine in your heart and minds, and tie them as reminders on your hands, and bind them on your foreheads. Teach them to your children, speaking about them when you sit at home, and when you walk along the road, and when you lie down and when you get up. Write them on your doorpost of your houses and on your gates, so that as long as the heavens are above the earth, your days and those of your children may be multiplied in the lands that the Lord swore to give your fathers. For if you carefully keep all these commandments I am giving you to follow, to love the Lord your God, to walk in all his ways, and to hold fast to him, then the Lord will drive out all of these nations before you, and you will dispossess nations greater and stronger than you. Every place where the sole of your foot treads will be yours. Your territory will extend from the wilderness to Lebanon, from the Euphrates River to the western sea. No man will be able to stand against you. The Lord your God will put the fear and dread of you upon all the land, wherever you set foot, as he has promised you. See, today I am setting before you a blessing and a curse. A blessing if you obey the commandments of the Lord your God, that I am giving you today. But a curse if you disobey the commandments of the Lord your God, and turn away from the path I command you today, by following other gods, which you have not known. When the Lord your God brings you into the land you are entering to possess, you are proclaiming the blessing on Mount Gerizim and the curse on Mount Ebal. Are not these mountains across the Jordan, west of the road toward the sunset, in the land of the Canaanites who live in the Arabah, opposite Gilgal, near the oak of Moreh? For if you were to settle, for you are about to cross the Jordan and and possess the land that the Lord your God is giving you. And when you take possession of it and settle in it, be careful to follow all the statutes and ordinances that I am setting before you today. So we talked yesterday about the commandments, the 11 commandments, and how that is the sum of the law. Everything you got to do is wrapped up there. This is telling you that there is more law coming. Get ready. We won't get into that reiteration today. Probably that will most likely be tomorrow. These are the statutes and ordinances you must be careful to follow all the days you live in the land that the Lord your God of your fathers has given you to possess. Destroy completely all the places where the nations you are dispossessing have served their gods. Atop the high mountains, on the hills, and under every green tree. That's interesting placements, right? It's interesting because we need to remember that the entities, in my estimation, are real, and that at least some of the entities were communicated with in the high places. We have biblical testimony to that, right? We've been through that in these books, that the prophets, not even the prophets of God, but other prophets as well, were able to talk to the Lord on top of the mountains by offering the proper sacrifices. And so we know that at least that one is verified by the Bible. So maybe some of these other two are as well, right? Maybe there are a separate peoples on the hills, and maybe there's a separate one under every green tree. Tear down their altars, smash their sacred pillars, and burn up their Asherah poles. We covered Asherah already. Asherah and the worship of Asherah is very important. For a very long time, the Israelites worshipped her as the spouse of Yahweh. Cut down the idols of your gods and wipe out their names from every place. You shall not worship the Lord your God in this way. Instead, you must seek the place the Lord your God will choose from among all your tribes to establish a dwelling for his name. And there you must go. To that place you are to bring your burnt offerings and sacrifices, your tithes and heave offerings, your vow offerings and freewill offerings, as well as the firstborn of all your herds and flocks. There in the presence of the Lord your God, you and your household shall eat and rejoice in all you do, because the Lord your God has blessed you. You are not to do as we are doing here today, where everyone does what seems right in his eyes. For you have not yet come to the resting place and the inheritance that the Lord your God is giving you. This is an important, overlooked, intentionally neglected piece of scripture right here. Because there is a timing issue. I keep emphasizing today because this point right here is the day of Moses' death. He has come out of his holy place and he is standing before the congregation and he gives this speech, which is Deuteronomy. Right? There's a piece in the front, there's the speech, and then there's the death at the bottom. And so he keeps referring to today that he is giving them this law, but they got the commandments prior to. And the Levites set up all of their stuff, according to Leviticus, at the mount where they received the law. The orders for the tabernacle was given, and it was constructed, and they did all of that there, and then they carried that through the wilderness for 40 years, supposedly. I've already gone through my arguments against that too. And so this part right here is important because of timing. And it is again another consistency problem. Because if they are just now being given the law, standing on the banks of the Jordan River, that is much different than being at Sinai and receiving the law. It is not unreasonable to assume that they had taken possession of this portion of the Holy Land, this setting up of the blessing and the curse, that is part of the ceremony that is coming later on. And that's the official promised land when they cross the Jordan, and that's why it's okay for Moses to be here. He's about to go up to a mountain and die. Nobody knows where he's buried. What everyone does here today, what everyone seems right in his own eyes here today, they are not following the law as they are taking possession of the land. They are not following the law prior to crossing the Jordan and going to Jericho and all of the various battles that are coming. They are not following the law. We have the same problem we had with Abraham, Isaac. Right? They weren't following the law. They were not doing the things God has commanded them to do in order to be blessed. Same problem here. They're not following the law. Moses is telling them today, you need to start following the law because you're about to go into the promised land. When you cross the Jordan and live in the land that the Lord your God has given you as an inheritance, and he gives you rest from all the enemies around you, and you dwell securely, then the Lord your God will choose a dwelling for his name. And there you are to bring everything I command you, your burnt offerings and sacrifices, your tithes and special gifts, and all the choice offerings you vow to the Lord. And you shall rejoice before the Lord your God, you, your sons and daughters, your men servant and maidservants, and the Levites within your gates, since he has no portion or inheritance among you. Be careful not to offer your burnt offerings in just any place you see. You must offer them only in the place of the Lord, the place the Lord will choose in one of your tribal territories. And there you shall do all that I command you. And there is a command to deviate from the command of God. When you make your sacrifice, build up your stone out of uncut, unhewn, untouched by tools, stone, and make your sacrifice there. And you can talk about a superseding command, okay? It's a new level of understanding. Okay, we're good. Not consistent, though. Oh, where did I drop off? Right here. Be careful not to offer your burnt offerings in just any place. You must offer them only in the place the Lord the God will choose in one of your tribal territories. And there you shall do all I command you. But whenever you want, you may slaughter and eat meat within any of your gates, according to the blessing of the Lord your God. Both the ceremonially clean and unclean may eat it as they would a gazelle or deer, but you must not eat the blood, pour it on the ground like water. So only the holy stuff from this point forward will have to come to the tabernacle to be sacrificed. And it's going to get divided again, right? It's going to get divided into smaller places somewhat for some of the sacrifices, because it's just too much for everybody to go to Israel every new moon or to Jerusalem. Within your gates you must not eat the tithe of grain, sorry guys, or new wine or oil, the firstborn of your herds or flocks, or any of the offerings that you have vowed to give, of your freewill offerings or special gifts. Instead, you must eat them in the presence of the Lord your God, at the place the Lord your God will choose. You, your sons and daughters, your men servants and maidservants, and the Levite within your gates. Rejoice before the Lord your God in all you do, and be careful not to neglect the Levites as long as you live in your land. And when the Lord your God expands your territory as he has promised, and you crave meat and say, I want to eat meat, you may eat it whenever you want. If the place where the Lord your God chooses to put his name is too far from you, then you may slaughter any of the herd or flock he has given you, as I have commanded you. And you may eat it within your gates whenever you want. Indeed, you may eat it as you would a gazelle or a deer. Both the ceremonially clean and unclean and clean may eat it. Only be sure not to eat the blood, because the blood is the life. You must not eat the life within the meat. You must not eat the blood. Pour it on the ground like water. Do not eat it, so that it may go well with you and your children after you, because you will be doing what is right in the eyes of the Lord. But you are to take your holy things and your vow offerings and go to the place the Lord will choose. Present the meat and the blood of the burnt offering on the altar of the Lord your God. The blood of your other sacrifices must be poured out beside the altar of the Lord your God, but you may eat the meat. Be careful to obey all the things I command you, so that it may always go well with you and your children after you, because you are doing what is good and right in the eyes of the Lord your God. And we're going to wrap it up with the warning against idolatry. When the Lord your God cuts off before you the nations you are entering to dispossess, and you drive them out and live in their land, be careful not to be ensnared by their ways after they have been destroyed before you. Do not inquire about their gods, asking, how do these nations serve their gods? I will do likewise. You must not worship the Lord your God in this way, because they practice for their gods every abomination which the Lord hates. They even burn their sons and daughters in the fire as sacrifices to their gods. And you're better than that, because you change it for an animal. See that you do everything I command you, and do not add to or subtract from it. How long is this? We'll do 13 as well. If a prophet or a dreamer of dreams arises among you and proclaims a sign or wonder to you, and if the sign or wonder he has spoken to you comes about, but he says, let us follow other gods which you have not known, and let us worship them, you must not listen to the words of that prophet or dreamer. The New Testament just got a big kick in the nuts. For the Lord your God is testing you to find out whether or not you love him with all of your heart and with all of your soul. You are to follow the Lord your God and fear him, keep his commandments, and listen to his voice. Serve him and hold fast to him. Such a prophet or a dreamer must be put to death, because he has advocated rebellion against the Lord your God, who has brought you out of the land of Egypt and redeemed you from the house of slavery. He has tried to turn you from the way in which the Lord your God has commanded you to walk. So you must purge evil from among you. If your very own brother, or your son or daughter, or the wife you embrace, or your closest friend secretly entices you, saying, let us go and worship other gods, which neither you nor your fathers have known, the gods of the people around you, whether near or far, whether from one end of the earth or the other, you must not yield to him or listen to him. Show him no pity, and do not spare or shield him. Instead, you must surely kill him. Your hand must be the first against him to put him to death, and then the hands of all the people. Stone him to death for trying to turn you away from the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. And then all Israel will hear and be afraid, and will never again do such a wicked thing among you. All right, so let's talk about the kick in the nads, right? What do you mean, Pitt? Jesus came to fulfill the law, not to put an end to it. All right, I'll grant you that. Jesus' ministry, while he was here on earth, let me get some water, was what? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the will and the power and the glory forever. What part of that was in Jesus' name? Not a single part of it. But here's the kicker. If not for Jesus, then we would still be doing animal sacrifice. Is animal sacrifice right? No, it's not. Was Jesus being nailed to the cross right? No, it was not. If you accept the Lord, right, 100%, the divine Son of God, sinless, was nailed to the cross. Why? For your sins? That's a tough sell. We've already talked about why that's a tough sell, because the only thing God has ever wanted from you was never a sacrifice. It was you turning yourself to Him. We have seen that in the book, and we will see that going forward in this book, because no sacrifice was ever required for you to be forgiven from your sins. God will freely accept a willing sacrifice that you give to Him, and that's what your tithe should be. You should be willingly giving of your gifts from Him back to Him. That's what your tithe should be. Not because it's this X percent, but because that's what you need to be doing. He never wanted a sacrifice. He never wanted the sacrifice. He never wanted the sacrifice. And that's the thing I stand on. But even if you take the Lord, He changed things, right? And you have to accept Him as divine, because if He is mortal at all, and He says to you to change things, then you've got a problem. If He's telling you to no longer make sacrifice, like He says that the law will be held in every jot and every tittle. Does that include sacrifice? And if it does include sacrifice, then why does He get sacrificed very shortly down the road? If it does include putting an end to the sin sacrifice and the guilt sacrifice and the shame sacrifice and the wave sacrifice and all of these things, if you're supposed to be putting an end to that, then you are changing the law. And it's not being fulfilled if you're not cutting the throats of these animals and draining them. But if you are still doing that, then that is pointless, because you're nailed to a cross. It is an unsolvable conundrum. My argument is that Jesus was never necessary. You don't have to have Him to reach God. He is a tool that allows you to reach God. Right? My analogy is this, right? My wife doesn't like it. I've got it wrote down over here, but like, what is necessary to cut down a tree? What do you absolutely have to cut down a tree? A sharp edge. That's it. All you need to cut down a tree is a sharp edge. Now, there are sharp edges and there are sharp edges. Now, I could go and take this pocket knife and get a 40-foot, like a huge tree with a 4-foot radius. And it's 40 foot tall. And I can cut it down with that knife, but it's going to take me a long time. And it's going to be really hard to do. Or I can get a tool. And that tool can have a sharp edge. The sharp edge is the tool that we use. But the thing that is behind it, right? Moses is like an axe. Right? Moses is cutting away a little bit of the separation and raising people up from the complete chaos that is everywhere. People are sleeping with their siblings and their parents and doing all kinds of really terrible things. And so Moses comes in like an axe and he's chopping things up. And you can cut down the tree with an axe. It's a sharp thing. It is purpose built for cutting down the tree. It is a tool that will absolutely work. But Jesus come in and He's like a chainsaw. He's got a whole bunch of sharp edges. And He uses them much more efficiently. And you get to the same destination in a much more efficient manner. Where I stand is that while Moses is the axe and Jesus is the chainsaw, God is like one of them tree tractors. He don't just cut down the tree. He does. He comes in and He grabs the tree and He hits it with that blade and goes, and then He takes the tree and He goes, cuts the limbs off, and then He takes it and sets it where he wants. The only thing you need out of the whole situation is God. But them other tools can help you get the job done. You can find God through the law of Moses. It's difficult. You can find God through Jesus. You have to walk the walk. You can't just walk the walk and say things. You got to do what he calls you to do. Or you can just go straight to the source and talk to God. I believe that. I believe that you can pick up the Quran and you can read the Quran. And if you live faithfully by the tenets and the pillars that are outlined, you can absolutely meet God and you can absolutely go to heaven. And that'll piss off a whole lot of people. We're in the middle of a Bible study, and I'll tell you there is truth in the Quran. There is truth in the Bhagavad Gita. There's truth in the Upanishads. There's truth scattered all over the place. Nobody holds a copyright on the truth. The truth is the tree tractor. It comes in and it does what it needs to do. If, regarding one of the cities of the Lord your God is giving you to inhabit, you hear it said, that wicked men have arisen from among you, and have led the people of the city astray, saying, let us go and serve other gods, which you have not known. Then you must inquire, investigate, and interrogate thoroughly. And if it is established with certainty that this abomination has been committed among you, you must surely put the inhabitants of that city to the sword. Devote to destruction all its people and livestock. And you are to gather all its plunder in the middle of the public square, and completely burn the city, and all its plunder as a whole burnt offering to the Lord your God. The city must remain a mound of ruins forever, never to be rebuilt. Nothing devoted to destruction shall cling to your hands, so that the Lord will turn from his fierce anger, grant you mercy, show you compassion, and multiply you as he swore to your fathers, because you obey the Lord your God, keeping all his commandments I am giving you today, and doing what is right in the sight of the eyes of the Lord your God. And that's where we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a very complicated topic. I know that I hold very unconventional beliefs, and that's why I give a disclaimer in the beginning. I know that I set off quite a few people in this Bible study that most people will not get through. I am here for the few seeking, questioning, wondering people. I am not for the people who are happy with either the axe or the chainsaw. If you have found peace and love and growth and a relationship with God and whatever your religion is, blessings upon you. Like, you don't want to be here because I'm shining light in places that light doesn't like to be shined. I am not here to convert anybody. I'm not here to convince anybody. I'm here simply relaying to you what has been shown to me through reading the book itself. Yes, I have meditative practices. Yes, I have had a spiritual sight. I've had a vision. I know I'm on the right track. Right? I receive confirmations from the God on the things I do. But it is not for everybody. The path I propose is tough. You have to actually live for God. That's tough to do. You don't get to have any excuses on why you don't make it. But you don't get regulated on whether or not you can eat shrimp. You don't get regulated on whether or not you get bacon. You do get regulated on whether or not you treat your brother in a loving manner. That happens. So, if you like what I'm talking about, I'm going to give you the shortcut, the quick path to happiness. Don't take that. That's a trick. If you want to have a relationship with God where you can actually learn and grow and be loved and nurtured and all of those things, but you want to give it in service, say something like this. Say, Dear Heavenly Father, I come to you as a sinner, and I ask for your forgiveness. I freely accept the grace that you have freely extended to me, and I ask you to change my life to match something you would like to see. And if you said anything resembling that and you truly meant it, and you go forth and you try, then you're good. You don't need to be washed in blood. You don't need to be dunked in the river. No one has to sing over you. There needs to be no smoke and no mirrors. It is a pure, honest, open relationship with the Lord your God. He knows your heart. Keep it open to Him. Make it where you don't have to hide it from Him. That's all He wants. That's the sum of the law right there. Love the Lord your God with all of your heart, soul, and mind. And love your neighbor as yourself. That's all you got to do. It's that simple. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me. And I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. And you are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. This has been Pit State. Peace.